All right, so today we're diving into the world of Chris LaCivita. You've probably heard of him. He's the mastermind behind Donald Trump's 2024 campaign. And this isn't just your typical campaign manager story. It's really more about someone with LaCivita's reputation, kind of the comeback kid of political operatives, and how someone like that operates in this really high stakes game of a presidential election.
Yeah, and it's interesting you bring up his reputation because I think it reflects a larger trend we're seeing in politics today.
Hmm.
LaCivita, I mean, he's known for this very aggressive style, a real brass knuckle brawler, some might say.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, like, what does it say about our system that this win-at-all-cost approach is so effective?
And we can't forget about the elephant or maybe the donkey in this room, right? We're
Yeah,
talking about the money.
right.
The Daily Beast, they're reporting that LaCivita has already pulled in a cool $22 million from Trump's campaign. And get this, it's only October. I've
Wow.
got to admit that number, when I saw it, it kind of stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah, it's a truly staggering sum, even for someone with LaCivita's, decades of experience in this arena.
Right.
Um, to understand this, right, most campaigns, they raise money through a few different avenues, right? You've got individual donations, you've got political action committees, these PACs, and these PACs are basically, groups that pool contributions to either support or oppose candidates,
Hmm.
and then sometimes even loans.
Okay.
And this money, it covers everything. And we're talking advertising, staff salaries, travel, you name it, anything campaign related. So when you see a figure like $22 million going to, one individual, it really suggests that, well, at least for the Trump campaign, their top strategist is worth every single penny.
It really makes you think about, where is all this money going, right?
Yeah.
Is it actually, translating into votes, or is it more about, I don't know, keeping certain people happy? But I think before we get too far down that rabbit hole, we should probably talk about Lycivitas' history a little bit here.
Yeah.
Because it's full of these, I don't know, some might say controversial tactics, but certainly fascinating.
Okay.
You can't talk about Chris LaVita without mentioning the Swift Boat Veterans for Truth campaign, which he spearheaded against John Kerry back in 2004.
Yeah, the Swift boat ads. I mean, that whole campaign, I think it really marks a turning point in how we view political advertising today. Basically, LaCivita, he used these very emotional appeals, testimonials from veterans, and some of them were later challenged, but nevertheless, to raise questions about Kerry's military service. And it really did capture the public's attention, had a very, very noticeable effect on public opinion.
It seems to be a recurring theme with LaCivita, though, wouldn't you say? I mean, he
Yeah.
has this knack for tapping into these very emotional currents, things that can really sway voters, even if the methods, well, let's just say they often spark a bit of debate, right?
I think that's fair to say, yeah.
Yeah.
We see this pattern, throughout his career.
Yeah.
Whether it's the 2014 Senate race in Kansas, where he really helped engineer Pat Roberts come from behind victory, or the 2022 Wisconsin Senate race, very instrumental in Ron Johnson's reelection. LaCivita, he seems to have this formula: negative advertising, linking opponents to unpopular figures, and often using messaging that is drawing criticism for what some say are racial undertones.
Right.
So it's quite a yeah, and it's really interesting how those tactics, as controversial as they are, they do seem to resonate with a certain segment of the electorate. It's like he's figured out to, I don't know, cut through all the noise and tack into something deeper, something almost primal.
Right. It's like he knows exactly which buttons to push to get that visceral reaction, But I guess the question is it effective because it's actually persuasive, or simply because it's just so jarring and attention grabbing? It makes you wonder about the long-term consequences of all of this, for our political discourse.
Yeah, no, it's a valid concern. Um, when you have a campaign that prioritizes these kinds of tactics, I mean, it does raise questions about what kind of dialogue, if any, they're even trying to foster.
And it's not just about the tactics themselves, right?
Right.
I mean, we're talking about $22 million to LaCivita. That speaks volumes, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, it suggests that the Trump campaign, they are heavily invested in this particular approach. And it kind of leads to another interesting question. What is motivating LaCivita himself?
Yeah.
I mean, we've discussed his tactics, his track record.
Right.
But what about the man behind the curtain?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. And speaking of motivations, I found something kind of interesting when I was, going through some more background on him. It seems like there's this stark contrast between LaCivita's own personal finances and his campaign earnings. Reports suggest he lives a relatively modest lifestyle.
Wow.
So if it's not just about the money, then what drives a guy like this?
Yeah. It's an interesting puzzle, isn't it? He was quoted, I think recently, saying, "I don't know many people who don't want to make America great again." So
Okay.
perhaps for LaCivita, it really is about aligning himself with a candidate who shares his worldview.
So more than just a strategist, maybe he's a true believer in all of this.
Yeah, could be.
It adds another layer to this whole thing, doesn't it?
It's about
Because it's not just about winning then, right?
yeah.
It's about advancing a particular ideology.
And that's an important distinction to make, right? It suggests a level of personal investment that goes beyond simply wanting to, win a campaign. This is different.
It's like he's all in,
That's it.
strategically, ideologically, but it does make you wonder, if this is the kind of approach that's going to define political campaigns going forward, with the aggressive tactics, the mountains of money being thrown around, the blurring of lines between strategy and ideology. I mean, what does that mean for the future of our democracy?
It's a question that should give us all pause, I think. Um, Is this the new normal? Or is there another way? A path that emphasizes substance over spectacle, dialogue over division.
It really makes you think, what does it take to succeed in politics these days? I mean, are we talking about connecting with voters on a genuine level, or is it more about controlling the narrative, even if it means resorting to these, well, let's just say attention-grabbing tactics?
Yeah, I mean, that's really the heart of the matter, isn't it? And the truth is, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
I mean, history's shown us very clearly that campaigns built on, division, negativity, they can be successful, at least in the short term.
Right.
But whether that actually translates to effective governing,
Yeah.
to actually, addressing those real challenges that our society is facing, well, that's a different question entirely.
And shouldn't that be what we're focused on ultimately? It's the actual issues, right? The policies, the things that actually impact people's lives. It seems like somewhere along the line, the focus shifted from governing to simply winning by any
Sure.
means necessary.
It's been a gradual erosion, I think, fueled by, well, a number of factors, right? I mean, you've got the 24/7 news cycle, the rise of social media, this increasing polarization of our entire society.
Right.
It creates this environment where it's easier to grab attention through outrage than it is through reasoned, debate.
Yeah, it's like we're almost hardwired to respond to these extreme emotionally charged messages. But then where does that leave us? I mean, if these tactics, if this is what it takes to win, does that mean the system itself is flawed?
It's a question worth grappling with. And I'd say it's not just about the system itself, but it's about us, the electorate.
Okay.
We have a responsibility to be informed, to engage critically with the information that we're just, bombarded with on a daily basis, and to demand better from our leaders.
I love that point. It's not just about pointing fingers at the system, right? It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in this, in shaping the political landscape.
Yeah.
We can choose to reward substance over spectacle. We can choose to engage in respectful dialogue, to demand transparency and accountability from our elected officials.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, the kind of political discourse that we cultivate as a society, it's a reflection of the values that we prioritize.
So anyone listening out there who's feeling disillusioned or maybe even a little disheartened by the state of modern politics, just remember, it's not a spectator sport. Your voice matters. Your vote matters. Your engagement, it matters. Be informed, be critical, and most importantly, be engaged.
Well said. The future of our democracy, it really does depend on a citizenry that is active and informed.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those questions. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive into the forces shaping our world.